Hello, everyone. So, this is going to be the first episode of a series that I've wanted to make for a very long time, the How to Spot Bullshit episode series, actually. And that is basically just showing BS in the media and how to spot it because it's the most important tactic for, well, it's the most important skill for modern consumption of the news because everything has a slant. Everything has a tilt. Literally, like, actually, truly everything. Like, besides legal opinions, I would say the only things that don't have a tilt that I'm familiar with now, not even laws, you have to go to judges' opinions, and even then, only the ones that aren't, certain ones are still, even then, very politically charged. So, you know, if you want to just see a place where there's no bullshit, you can go to some of the opinions during the 2020 election, some of the judges' opinions there, upholding the results and all those kinds of things. But for the most part, you're not going to get any lack of political tilt. And so, the very first recommendation that I have for everybody is to read the opinion section of the news because it's all opinion anyway. And it's a lot better when they tell you it's opinion. So, for example, I subscribe to the New York Times not because of all this stuff, but because of this stuff right here. This is the only place I ever go. Opinion. And this is all you need to look at. And, the endangered state of American politics. And all the opinion sections, I don't know what Fox's is like, but usually opinions are where you get people that are being critical of the whole system, which is what you need now. Because if you go to, I pulled up a bunch of articles that I could use for the first episode, but probably the Biden one, this will just be like political banter. So I can just go right back to the base New York Times. Um, you know, so I can talk about the front page stuff later, but for the most part, as step one, just start, like, I would really recommend people read more opinion articles. Once again, because it's not all opinion. You have to realize that the New York Times is going to stick to facts. They are. And so is CNN and so is NBC. When they say, sources say, I still think that they're being legit there because there's no way they couldn't be without losing all of their credibility. For example, the farthest that it goes is the Steele dossier, where you will see that they will make a mountain out of a molehill, but it still was a real thing, where there was a guy who did say those things, and that dossier did exist. And if you read carefully, CNN and New York Times and NBC, they do say that it was not verified or unverified claims. But they made that a minor note. Whereas when Trump makes unverified claims, it's the main feature of the claim. It's the fact that it's unverified, right? And then if you listen to Fox News, it's the other way around. Where if Trump says something that's unverified, but feels like it, like, you want it to be true, it's good. And then otherwise, if it's a Democrat, you highlight that it's unverified. And then you go all the way. You have to be able to distinguish that line from the fact to not fact line. Fox News will stick to the facts. So they don't say that Trump won in 2020 because he lost, right? So Fox News the whole time was like, well, yeah, Biden won, obviously. And they do what they can to kind of skirt the line there, but, they don't, really. So you have to be able to distinguish fake news from not fake news. Fake news is news that is not factual. And any news that sticks to the facts is not fake news. Now, biased news is not fake news. It's just news. All news. So, there's a huge difference between a journalist who lies and a journalist who reports the truth, even if they're reporting that truth in an extremely dishonest way. Tucker Carlson, for example, very often dishonest with how he represents the facts, but he does stick with the facts. Otherwise, he would lose his job, presumably, right? Or at least be subject to some kind of scorn at Fox, but not at Newsmax, So I think that most people kind of get that with a little bit of common sense. Like, most people didn't go to watch Newsmax up to now still, right? Maybe you thought that there was some controversy, maybe even after January 6th, maybe you're sympathetic to the January 6th crowd and the people that were there. But most people still don't think that Fox News is just lying when they say that Biden won, right? Most people aren't still threatening to burn down Fox's headquarters or never watch it again because they said Biden won in 2020. So you have to realize that there's the slant after that, but that there's a hard line between facts and lies. You know what? Honestly, I think that kind of, I have all my games up too. I honestly think that I might have sort of said enough for a bit of like an intro into this series and why we're going over opinion articles. We're going to talk about cool stuff, the state of American politics and my opinions on that. I'm going to explain why it's not as bad as it looks and it's worse than it looks at the same time, and like what you should be worried about versus not worried about. I'll say right now that our country will survive. I will say that with confidence, and when I'm not confident, I will say so. But I think that the republic as such will survive. But it's cool to talk about all that stuff, and so yeah, I think I'm going to wrap it up with an intro before I make individual articles on actual articles, individual videos on actual articles. So yeah, eventually when my channel gets big enough or something, like, I'm sure I'm not allowed to do this because I subscribe and then kind of share some of the content. Maybe I won't have to read all the way through or something. But for now I will, and if I am ever important enough for the New York Times to like, for anyone to even bother to flag this for sharing like subscribe to content, I would be very flattered. So I'll consider that a mark of success. Cool. Thank you, everybody.